p.m. to 4 p.m. and Saturdays 11:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Then catch all the daily highlights every night between 10 and 11 p.m.
Dis popsterre, pop-ups, popspeel en regte poppe, die Woensdag in Pasella. Ons kuier in Klerksdorp in die Noordwes, loer na die nuwe neiging van rukkie restaurante. Neem Isidingo se Kelvin om sy hoogtevrees te oorkom. Maak gesonde kos vir swanger vrouens en vind uit oor tradisionele Zulu klere. Dan sing Monique en Snotkop.
Ek's verlief, verlief, verlief.
Pasella, Woensdag 7:30, SABC 2.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Live on SABC 2. The SAMRO Foundation Overseas Scholarship is without a doubt a vital music competition in this country, with previous winners, which include the likes of Tutu Boane and Kesava Naidu, among many. The competition has a sense of seriousness about the craft among many music students here at home. One of this year's semi-finalists, and he's based in Pretoria. He's a classical saxophonist. Matthew Lombard joins me. Good morning and welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Sam. Thank you.
Before we act, congratulations on being a semi-finalist, first of all. But before we talk about the competition and what it means, really, what drew you to the saxophone and classical music, the genre?
Yeah, basically I started piano at a primary school age, in my later years of primary school. I always would play by ear, and I actually started formal lessons late in my primary school years. And it happened that that teacher that I was learning with recommended the saxophone. The school that I went to was very big on saxophone, and I saw results from that school, Pretoria Boys High School. So I decided, based on a lot of factors, but mainly that I would try the saxophone. And everything sort of unfolded naturally from there.
And you fell in love with it 11 years later?
Yeah, basically, yeah. I mean, all the work that I did there with the great teacher that was there at the school, it was just wonderful, and I enjoyed it very much.
Now, you're a semi-finalist in the SAMRO Foundation Overseas Scholarship Competition. What does it really mean to you and your contemporaries?
It's a very big opportunity, first of all, for any music student or music professional to be able to go overseas. The costs involved to study overseas are phenomenal. And also the opportunities overseas are a lot more varied in terms of what I can do. The classical saxophone in South Africa hasn't really been developed enough. And as a result, I need to actually get over to further my career and further my abilities. So in terms of being a semi-finalist for the competition, it's a great opportunity for anyone. And I think for me, I don't take it for granted. I can get into this sort of competition and have a chance at getting overseas and furthering my career.
And fulfilling your dreams as well. You mentioned the fact that it's not really developed, the classical saxophone, that particular genre. Why is it?
Well,
what is it about it?
Basically, the saxophone is seen more as a jazz instrument, especially in South Africa. The public doesn't really hear a lot of classical saxophone playing, and as a result, it's a very small community. If you go to Europe or America, you'll see a lot of classical saxophone happening as well as jazz saxophone, whereas in South Africa, the scope is limited to more or less basically jazz.
Do you think it's that uniqueness that got you into the semi-final spot? Do you think that is one of the big issues, or is it just the fact that you've really dedicated your life to this art form?
I think it could be a bit of the uniqueness, the fact that not many people do classical saxophone. I think in the semi-finalist group there are two of us that do classical saxophone, and I don't know if there are many more saxophone players that do classical in South Africa. So partly, yeah, it is the uniqueness, and partly it's the dedication to my art and what I do.
Now, speak to me about the work that is expected of you once you're now in the semi-final position now. What kind of work is expected from you, and are you excited?
Excited and nervous, yes. A lot of work is expected. I've got to prepare for 2 more rounds of performances, where it's a grueling sort of adjudication panel that sit there and listen to you and decide if you're better than the next person. And from that perspective, it's very stressful in terms of preparing work. Also, there are prescribed works by South African composers that the SAMRO Foundation has commissioned for the competition especially. And those also are very challenging in terms of they sort of give it to you a month or two before the competition and you have to go and learn it. So in that aspect, it's very good in terms of musicianship because it shows another quality of the art as well.
Now, you started out as the piano. Some teacher referred and said, think about the saxophone as an instrument. Who do you list as your biggest influence musically?
I think my biggest influence musically was my second saxophone teacher. He's now actually a doctoral student or doctoral research person in the UK, and he was my biggest influence, Mark Bertha. He basically was one of the only classical saxophonists I knew at the time, and his playing basically inspired me.
For those, a lot of people are now sitting at home and going, okay, classical saxophone, that style playing. What is Matthew Lombard's flavor? Lombard's style of playing? Very quickly.
I think for me, I am a very lyrical player. When I play, I don't focus as much on the technical flashiness of a piece. The piece I presented earlier was something a little bit more lyrical and more showy sound-wise. And for me, I try and develop my sound in order to create a multitude of different colors in my playing.
Matthew, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank
and of
you.
course, we'll hear from you one more time. That's Matthew Lombard. He's from Pretoria, and he's a classical saxophonist who's one of the finalists in this year's SAMRO Overseas Scholarship Competition. Let us know what you think. It's morning live at sabc.co.za. Let's quickly pop in to Level.
Thanks, Sam. Now, rhino poaching has been on the rise since early 2006, with over 1,000 rhino killed for their horns in South Africa since nature conservationists and local government are battling to curb the demand of rhino. It's a bitter battle to change mindsets and cultural superstitions that date back thousands of years. SABC News journalists Nozintombi Mia and Herbert Memela went on an anti-poaching trip through the Kruger National Park with conservationists and park rangers to see what can be done to curb this activity.
The African rhino, an endangered species due to human greed. They're hunted as trophies and poached for their horns. In southern Africa, there are just over 3,000 white rhinos left. The dwindling number has nature conservationists worried. They face extinction within the next 10 years if nothing is done to save them. The Kruger National Park Nature Game Reserve is 2 million hectares wide, and it's been compared to the size of Israel. But the biggest problem here is rhino